All right, let's talk about the single biggest, most overlooked factor in corporate training. And no, it's not the budget, it's not the latest tech, it's fun. Yeah, I said it, fun. And I know you might be thinking, fun at work? But stick with me here, because we're going to break down why fun isn't just a nice to have, but maybe the secret ingredient your company has been missing all along.
You've heard this a million times, right? It's kind of the default setting in so many companies. Work is serious, training is serious, so fun has no place here, it's just a distraction. That's the mindset. Fun isn't just seen as unnecessary, it's practically treated like a liability, something that gets in the way of the real work of learning.
Okay, but what if that whole way of thinking is completely wrong? What if it's not just outdated, but it's actually sabotaging your team's development? What if fun isn't the enemy of learning? What if it's the actual key that unlocks the whole thing?
So let's get into the science here, because this isn't just a fluffy idea. Fun isn't just about, pizza parties and games. On a deep biological level, it is a seriously powerful tool for engagement and for memory. We're not talking theory here, we're talking straight-up brain chemistry.
So, what's the magic ingredient? Well, it all comes down to this one little neurotransmitter, dopamine. Now, you probably know dopamine as the feel-good chemical, right? It's linked to pleasure and reward. But here's the kicker. It also acts like the brain's save button. When dopamine is flowing, your brain basically perks up and says, hey, pay attention, this is important. And it hardwires that information much, much more effectively. And this is how it works. It's a super simple chain reaction. You do something fun, something engaging, that triggers your brain to release dopamine. That dopamine gives you that sense of pleasure, of reward. And that sends a huge signal to your brain, this stuff matters, remember it. And boom, learning and memory get a massive boost.
So here's the big takeaway from all this science stuff. When we write fun off as just being silly or unprofessional, we're literally shutting down one of the most effective, natural ways our brains are built to learn. Fun isn't the distraction from the learning, it's the pathway to it.
Okay, so if fun is so powerful, why isn't every training session a blast? That's a fair question, right? Well, to get that, we have to look at the other side of the coin, the traditional training model that, let's be honest, most of us have had to sit through.
Oh man, we have all been here. You know the scene. You're staring at slide number 87 of a massive PowerPoint deck. There's a monotone voice just droning on, and you're checking your email, you're mentally making a grocery list, you're just counting the minutes until it's over, so you can click through that quiz that just proves you were, physically present.
And here's the really painful part for the business. All that time, all that energy, all that money spent on the training, poof, it just vanishes. Sure, a compliance box gets checked on a spreadsheet somewhere, but the actual knowledge, it's gone within a week. It's just the illusion of training with zero actual impact.
I mean, look at the difference here. It's just night and day, isn't it? On one hand, you've got traditional training. It's passive, it's monotone, it's totally forgettable, and you're just sitting there by yourself. And on the other hand, you have something active, energetic, memorable, and collaborative. It's the difference between being talked at and actually being part of the game. So what's the fix? Well, it's not about making a few small changes. It's about totally reimagining what learning at work can even look like. It's about taking that boring, passive session and turning it into something alive.
So picture this. Instead of another lecture, you're thrown into a team challenge. There's a little friendly competition going on. You're not just hearing about work scenarios, you're actually dealing with them right now. You're debating with your team, making quick decisions under a bit of pressure, and trying to score points to get ahead.
And what happens? Suddenly the whole room just comes alive. The energy completely shifts. People are leaning forward, they're talking, they're laughing, they're competing, and most importantly, they are thinking critically about what they're doing. And you know what that means? That dopamine is flowing.
And that is the secret sauce. That's why it sticks. The knowledge isn't just some boring bullet point on a slide anymore. Now it's tied to an emotion, to an action you actually took, to a fun experience you had with your colleagues. It becomes a real memory, not just a random fact you're supposed to memorize.
But let's be really clear here. This is not just about making people happy for an afternoon. This is about real business results. So let's talk about the bottom line, the actual return on investment you get when you finally make learning engaging.
Think about it. Companies spend a ton of money on training and development, By making that training fun and engaging, you're not just making it a better experience. You're actually turning what can feel like a huge expense into a high-impact investment, one that actually pays off.
Because here's what happens. When your employees are truly engaged, they don't just show up to training, they're in it. They absorb the material. They walk away from the session actually excited to try out what they learned. And that's when development stops being about checking a box and starts being about real, actual transformation.
So if there is just one thing you take away from all this, let it be this right here. Fun is not the enemy of learning. It never was. Fun is the key that unlocks the entire thing.
And so that leaves us with one last question for you to think about. A question for your own team, for your own company. Take a hard look at your training. Is it actually building real skills? Is it changing how people work? Or is it just checking a box? Because honestly, the answer to that question could change everything.